we were supposed to film the commercial in one day, and they were filming the end of one commercial in the morning, and then they started mine, and the last scene we got to for the day was the Pittsburgh perfect scene. Pete did a bang up job of putting in charge of Pittsburgh.
Peter, that's why I picked Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's perfect. Peter, may I call you Pete? Call me Pete. Pete.
And that took longer than expected, so we didn't finish the final scene, which was the desk where the package comes across.
Congratulations on your deal in Denver, Dave. I'm putting you down to deal with Dallas. Don, is it a deal? Do we have a deal? It's a deal. I got to go. I got a call coming in. Hi, Doc. Just dealt with Don.
And Joe Settlemeyer, who was the director, great guy, so incredible, so talented, and the only person I've ever worked for who said, this is what it's going to look like when it's done, and it does. He doesn't let a lot of people on the set, but after the first day of filming, the word got back to the advertising agency that the commercial was going to be pretty good. So the next morning, everybody from the agency, all the suits showed up, and everybody had an opinion, and everybody, let's do this, let's do that. So we're doing the last scene, and at one point I lean back, and an envelope comes across the desk. And the guy says, well, I like that, but let's try with the tube. So then a tube, and then a small box, and then a big box, and then a couple of things. And then sometimes the guy's hands would show, and, whatever. We did like 24 takes without me making a mistake. And Settlemeyer said to me, what are you, like a machine? You don't ever make a mistake. I said, you want a mistake? I'll give you the mistake the next time. So I said, David's a dork with Dick, Don, and Duck.
Putting you down to deal with Dick. Dick, what's the deal with the deal? Are we dealing? We're dealing. David's a deal with Don, Dork, and Dick. Dork, it's a deal with Dave, Dick, and Dave. Don, it's a dork with Dick, Dave, and Duck. Gotta go, Dave. Disconnecting. Gotta go, Dick. Disconnecting. Gotta go, Dan. Disconnecting.
And that's the take he put in the commercial.
The irony there is, unless you slow it down, they wouldn't even notice that it was a mistake.
People didn't know this, and in fact, for years, he had wanted to call characters Load and Dork, and the network censors would not let him do that. So around the boardroom table, we had Jim, Bill, Bob, Carl, Fred, Load, Dork, Adolf, and Ted. And nobody knew it, and I was on the Today Show, and I told them that story about they wouldn't let him do that. And then everybody wanted the commercial pulled because I said Load and Dork, and then they ended up to just keep running it. They didn't pull it, but, I guess they felt like a fast one had been pulled on them. Well, occasionally I will watch, like things show up on YouTube that I don't even remember that I did. Someone posted a thing and then they'll put them on my timeline. So that's how I know that they're up there on my Facebook timeline. And there was one thing where I did for Who Shrunk Saturday Morning or something like that. And I was in a red suit with a big purple top hat and all that. I have no recollection of it's clearly me. I clearly did it. But I'm sure what happened was I used to fly 250,000 miles a year. I never knew where I was, which end was up, Got up in the morning, went and did the job, went to the airport, flew to the next city, got up, did the job, went to the next city. And I probably had come home, like on a Friday night or something, and then went 6 o'clock in the morning to go do this, and it was probably totally on another planet and didn't even realize I had done it.
Wow. Imagine all the frequent flyer miles.
No, I have, just on American Airlines alone, I've flown over 2 million miles.
Wow. And here I've barely been able to survive the couple of trips I've been to New York to visit my brother. You're known for your fast talking, but are there roles that you've done where it was just your regular voice?
Go. Oscars, Emmys. Oh, this is me speaking for sports. I'm ABC's big sports person. Howard Cosell would say. George Washington's picture, the number 1, things that are treasury first. Date, things that are on a dollar bill.
Well, I just did a play based on Madame Curie, and I played 3 different characters. I played a French paymaster, Alsace-Lorrainian scientist, and a German and a British aristocrat scientist. So I got to do it was all regular speech, of course, but all 3 separate dialects and accents. So that was kind of fun. And I have done some stuff on film. In the movie Blank Man, I do kind of like a hillbilly kind of thing. I did a pilot called The Auctioneer, where I'm playing kind of a Southern auctioneer guy. And then I did a short film called Queerspiracy, where I got to play like a Jerry Falwell character.
No question. There is most certainly a queerspiracy.
There is no queerspiracy.
There is a queer...
Number 17 is, what was your worst experience or worst day behind a mic or in a studio?
Oh God, there's been a couple. Usually things are pretty good, but I remember I was doing a job for Burger King. Burger King had a promotion that if you brought in a coupon from any fast food restaurant, you would get a free Whopper. So the gist of the commercial was, you know, Burger King has this new promotion. You bring in a coupon, you get a free Whopper. Any restaurant. You mean they'll take coupons from, and then I'd list this whole big long list of fast food restaurants. I was out on a press tour at the time. They kept sending me the script because I told them I didn't like to do lists, and that lists were really hard, and I had to practice them more because there's no logical progression between one restaurant and another. It's not like a sentence where the words are saying something. So I was in like 27 cities in 24 days, and they kept sending the script to the city I was in the day before. So then when I finally showed up in New York, they had the script waiting for me at the hotel, and it was like a phone book. And they thought, I said I speak 6 words, I said for radio it should be about 6 words a second. They thought I meant 6 fast food restaurants a second. So Wonderful Wally Waxman's World of Waffles counted as 1. So it was way too many. They had to cut it out, cut it down, do whatever. So I was practicing it, and okay, fine, the next morning we're going to record it. I show up to record it. There's like 14 people from the advertising agency crammed into this little recording booth. I'm in the booth by myself, but they're in with the technician. And in the commercial was the Burger King girl. And she's supposed to say, yes, we'll take any coupon, and then go, And they wanted her to say that over specific words. They wanted certainly McDonald's to be in the clear and Wendy's to be in the clear, but they wanted her to be doing all these little giggles and things and whatever. Well, there was a subway fire. The girl got stuck in the subway fire. So she was hours late. And the technician and I suggested that I just go in, record the list, and then she comes in, she can record her little, and then they just put it on top where everybody wants it, and wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, the commercial's done. No. We need to have the magic of the people working together. There's nothing like spontaneity, and we'll never be able to get that. So we waited, and finally the girl showed up, considerably shaken, and understandably so. You're just in a subway fire. And it turns out, not only did that happen, it was her first job ever. Her first professional job. So, and she's working with me, and they put us both in the same booth, about 6 inches apart from one another. And I was so intimidating to her because she had to come in at certain times, but I'm flying through this list. So to just time it right was awful. And she kept talking over, the important titles and whatever else. We kept doing take after take after take after take after take. Then they thought, well, maybe if we put her in a separate booth, she'll be able to do it better. So they put her in a different booth, and then we were both connected with the headsets, and it still wasn't working. And finally, the guy who wouldn't let us do it the way we wanted in the beginning said, hey, I have an idea. What if we record John, and then we record her, and then we put the two of them together? And at this point, I'd been there like almost 5 hours, and for something that should have taken a half an hour. And I was in New York. I went to visit my friends. I didn't want to be sitting in a booth, wasted at my time, certainly. So I went in, I read the list clean, I read it twice, that was it, took 30 seconds. Walk out, they put the girl in, she goes, yeah, whatever. They pieced it together, in 15 minutes they got a commercial. And then they started. I like the way he said Wendy's, but I don't like the way he said Hardee's. Oh, you didn't like Hardee's? I thought Hardee's was... And I just looked at them, and I'm very calm. I'm very cooperative. I've worked with some people that are just plain stupid. That's all I can say. I won't tell you who, but some of them are just plain stupid. And I'm very good with them, and I just put up with things, and I just do my job. I'm very professional. But at this point, I had it. And I just looked at him, and I said, if you don't like the way I said Arby's, and you don't like the way I said Hardee's, you've got 4 hours of me saying these things. You can sit here till hell freezes over and pick a Hardee's you like and pick an Arby's that you like and paste it in there. But I am not reading that list one more time. And that's the only time I ever pulled a hissy fit at a job. I was working a job one day, and in the next studio, it was the same advertising agency. They were doing a Wilford Brimley commercial, and the guy says, "You got to see this." So we go in there, and Wilford comes in. I introduce him, said hello to him, whatever. He sits down. They go, "Okay, and action." He reads it. They say, "Cut." He goes, "Was that to time?" And they go, "Yeah, the timing was perfect." He says, "Ain't getting better than that." And he got up and he walked out. I'm like, oh, if I can only get to that point. I find that I can usually tell when someone's going to be difficult to work with. So what I'll do if I think they're going to really be a chop buster, I'll purposefully, now they don't know this of course, but I'll purposely screw up the first couple of takes so that when I get it right, they think, oh, thank God he said the right words. Because otherwise, with people that are difficult, if you get it perfectly the first time, they're not satisfied, you know, and then sometimes they say stupid things to you. Like, I was doing a commercial for Continental Airlines, a radio commercial, and they had built a new terminal in Newark, Terminal 1. And we're recording it. I'm in Los Angeles. There's people in New York. There's people in Denver, where that was Continental's base. Continental's not around anymore. There were people in Chicago. They were all over the place. And I record this thing, and I finish the take, and there's a whole, you know, rhubarb. Everybody's discussing, you know, blah, 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 blah. And then they say to me, "You have 1/100th of a second. So could you finesse Terminal 1 a little bit?" I was like, are you kidding me? I mean, I knew what they meant, and I knew how to do what they wanted. I just sped up other parts and slowed down a little bit on Terminal 1 and still kept it to time. But it wasn't like I added 1/100th of a second to me saying Terminal 1. It's just dumbfounded with, sometimes people will just say the stupidest things to you. But mostly people are really nice, and I love working with them. The Micromachine people were great. I loved working with them. I look forward to it every year. We did the commercials in January, and my stuff took a week to film, because we usually do 25 commercials in a week. And then they filmed for several weeks because they had to shoot all the product stuff. But my stuff would be done in a week, and everybody was great. And that's, every job should be like that, where just, you know, people get along, you go in, you do it, and you leave.
Well, you just mentioned about the food commercial thing. That brings to mind a question not on the list. When you're in a situation like that, how does the voice actors union handle that?
Well, they have you for the whole day, so they weren't, you know, they weren't in violation, so they could have kept me there longer if they wanted. And if they keep you over it's an 8-hour day with a lunch break or whatever. If they keep you longer than that, then they have to pay you overtime and do whatever. But being there for 5 hours was not a full day yet. So now I have specifically in some of my contracts negotiated, you can't use me for more than 4 hours. You can't use me for more than 3 hours, because either I have to fly to another city or I have a job that afternoon or whatever. And I think that always works out well, because then people know they have to get it done. There's more of a sense of urgency when you know you have 4 hours instead of 8 hours.
When it absolutely, positively has to be there overnight.
That's right.
I need to send this parcel with the profit projections to Pete Porter in Pasadena. And it absolutely, positively has to be there overnight.
Pete Porter, pass it on.
Pasadena, promptly. Package parcel processing, pronto.
This question right here, I really enjoy asking more than others, because it was one of my favorite shows growing up.
Oh yeah, Rocky and Bullwinkle were on all the time, and Boris and Natasha. And I used to love that, and I used to love Sherman and Peabody, the original ones, the Fractured Fairy Tales. They were great. You know, back when I was a kid, there wasn't 15 different cartoon channels. You know, you had, and mostly cartoons weren't on during the week. The kids' show that was on during the week was Romper Room and Captain Kangaroo. And on the weekend, you had, on Saturday morning, that was when the cartoons were on. So if you didn't watch them on Saturday morning, when ABC started for a while, they would put the cartoons on Friday nights. And that started with the Flintstones, and Top Cat was the other show that was on. And we used to love watching those as kids. And then they had the Bugs Bunny show was on when that became successful.
1001 Tales for Toddlers.
And then, of course, the Muppet Show.
What are you going to do? I'll tell you what I'm going to do, Piggy. I'm going to fire you. Piggy, you are fired. You are fired. You are fired. You are fired. Piggy, you are fired. Fired. You are fired. Piggy, you are fired. Fired.
But other than that, you were pretty much relegated to Saturday morning.
It's a sacred institution that I'm sad to see gone.
Well, kids have a lot of options now where they can watch. There's, a lot more stuff out there.
Yeah, well, they can keep it. Child of the 80s and the 90s, the Saturday morning cartoons were still around, and I'm a total 80s buff. If it isn't obvious already.
No, go on. You're putting me on.
Well, speaking of the Muppets, when you were on Sesame Street for What Else? Sis! And you were the Peter Piper guy. Did you actually meet the Muppeteers like Jerry Nelson, Carol Spinney, Frank Oz? I know you probably met Jim Henson because he was that honcho.
Yeah, but he wasn't there, and Frank Oz wasn't there. But the others were. So I did get to meet them when I was there, which was fun. That was an excellent show to work on. You want to talk about everybody being friendly? It was the friendliest set.
You're wrong.
And I have a twin sister, and one of her kids, who's now a line producer on some shows, but one of his jobs was driving Big Bird around. He did some stuff on Sesame Street at the Children's Television Workshop, and he had to drive him around quite frequently. So it came full circle when he said, "My uncle was on the show."
Alfred, Buddy, Colton, David, Egbert, Ferdinand, Gregory, Herbert, Ichabod, Jimmy, Joe, Kyle, Lyle, Martin, Norman, Oscar, Peter, Quincy, Reginald, Stanley, Throckmorton, Ulysses, Victor, Wally, Xavier, Yarbo, Zach.
You're kidding!
Is he the same nephew that does your professional Facebook profile?
Yeah, I'm really, I guess because I'm an old, I'm really not very much on social media, and he had set up a fan page for me, which I've never really expanded. I have a whole bunch of stuff that I want to put up, and I got to get it, transferred. Most of my life is on 3/4-inch videotape still that hasn't been moved over. And a lot of stuff that I see show up online, I have no idea where people get it from. But I actually had an interview. I was out on tour for my 10 Classic in 10 Minutes, and I was in Boston. And that interview has been watched 101 million times.
Not surprising. You are an awesome guy.
But that's a lot of views. I have tons of stuff that's 14 million, 20 million, whatever. But that's the only one I had that's broken 100, and it just broke it a little while ago. It took 7 years to do it, but you'd think people would stop watching it after 7 years, but they keep watching it.
Can you be sure to give your nephew my thanks, because he was the one who helped arrange this.
I will definitely do that.
Number 20. You were on General Hospital in 2016. You said you were in a few others also. Were you a fan of the soap?
I never, especially in the 80s, I was never home. I wasn't home during the day to watch any of those shows, so I never really did. My mother used to watch a bunch of them, and certainly when I was in, living at home and in school, if I was home in the afternoons, I'd see the episode because we only had one TV in the house, and that was our time to watch our shows. So if you wanted to watch TV, you had to watch the soap opera. I never really watched it. I remember I was on the Richard Simmons show, and they had Anthony Geary was on, and they had me planted in the audience. We had people that would do exercises, so I had little green silk hot pants and a wife beater T-shirt, and they said, "Who can tell us what's happened to his character since he's been on the show?" And then, of course, I raised my hand and get up and tell everything that happened to him since he had been on the show. And I didn't know any of it. So it was the Ice Princess and all this other stuff that I had no idea what I was talking about. So I had to sit down with somebody, and they had to explain to me what all this stuff was I was saying, because I had no idea.
Because Einstein's weather control machine was Spencer helped destroy. The Ice Princess was what powered it, and it was Mikos' grandson that you married to the granddaughter of Steve Hardy.
You have 60 seconds before the next.
Trust me, this one suits us better.
If you don't hurry up.
Will $500 buy me 3 more minutes, perhaps?
Please proceed.
Your Majesty, I guess, will you do the honors?
Prince Nicholas Mikhail Storvasovich Kassadine. Dine. Do you take Hayden Barnes to be your wife?
I do.
Hayden Barnes. Do you take Prince Nicholas Mikolai Strasovich Kassadine Dine?
That was shot not too long ago. That was not my finest hour in the studio. My mouth was refusing to work that day. I don't know what was going on. They were supposed to shoot it in the morning, and then they changed the schedule, and I was there at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning. And we didn't shoot it till 5 o'clock at night, and it was the last shot, and everybody wanted to go home. And my tongue just kept getting tied, and I was getting, the more tied it got, the more frustrated I got, the more it was just awful. So it was okay. But, when it happens to you, it's horrible. So I just felt terrible because I do have a reputation of getting stuff, on the first take, the second take, or whatever, very quickly. So, I don't like to go in and then keep people waiting, especially when they've been there all day and they want to go home, and you're the reason they're not leaving. It's bad. But I had been on the show before. There was a subplot. I'm trying to think. Somebody was hiding out in a like a spa, and Tony Geary and two other people. Tony Geary went like the Kentucky Colonel, and two of the guys dressed up as women, and they come to the spa to be spies to trap this guy that's hiding out at the spa. And I played like the manager of the spa, so it wasn't fast talking. It was just regular, but then I was in several episodes because the storyline, they drag these things out forever.
You remember what time period that was?
I think that was probably the 90s. Might have been the 80s. I don't know. I never saw the guy they were hiding, that was hiding out. I only had my scenes with the other ones. And it was so ridiculous because he clearly, had Kentucky Fried Chicken makeup on, and the two guys dressed up in dresses look no more like a woman. I mean, they look like linebackers in a dress. But
call that the Full House effect.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen before on Full House. And I think I have a theory as to why your tongue wasn't working that day. Helena Cassadine, she was already dead at this point, but she's too evil to die completely. Elizabeth Taylor was the one who put the curse on Luke and Laura in 1981 with the Ice Princess, and I'm pretty sure she didn't approve of Nicholas marrying Hayden, so she used a curse on you. So when you said Prince Nicholas Mikhail Stavrosovich Cassadine and you got it wrong, were you actually supposed to actually say Prince Nicholas Mikhail Stavrosovich Cassadine as the line?
No, the way I said it was the way they wrote it.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't sure what I was, because like I say, I hadn't been watching the show, so I wasn't sure what it was, but that's how they wanted me to say it. So
must be odd that I know that name like that.
Well, if you're a fan of the show and you watch the show, you're going to know that stuff.
Definitely.
People ask me stuff about shows that I watch. I know everything about it. But if it's not a show I watch, they give me $1 million to answer a question I wouldn't be able to.
Are there times like at BotCon where they'll ask you a question about an episode that you did and you were Blurr, but it was like such a minute detail they think that you knew, but wouldn't have, for the life of you, you wouldn't know because it was just too small of a thing to remember?
Well, when you do the panels or when you're even signing stuff and people come up and ask you questions, there are some very serious fans of the show. And as I mentioned earlier, sometimes I wouldn't even see the full script of what the episode was. I'd just go in and they'd hand me 2 pages with my lines on it.
Blaster, we're in the past. The past? How do we get to the past? How can we even be in the past of what's past is past, and what's the point? The real point is there's no future in the past.
So I had no idea what was going on. I mean, Wally would say, oh, this is happening here, or this is happening there, and then I'd go through the line. So, and I never got to really watch the shows and study the shows. So they pretty much were out of my head 2 seconds after I said it. And certainly 35 years later, 40 years later, I don't really remember a lot of the stuff. But many people remember every minute detail. And, I always, I wish I was more versed in it so I could answer it. I hate saying, well, I really don't have any idea. But I think that's great that there are fans like that. Then there are people that ask stupid things like, when your struts melted, what was that like? It's like, okay, I don't have struts. I'm not a cartoon character, But,
yeah.
So it's a little bit of both.
My brother wanted me to ask you this: when you were the Micro Machine Man, and he was a big Micro Machine fan. I mean, he used to play with those things all the time. He had the Super Van City thing. Sorry. How many takes do you think it would entail to get a commercial just right when you were in super fast talking mode?
We really didn't do very many takes because we would shoot like 5 commercials a day. And certain ones, like Car Wash City, which we shot at like 6 o'clock in the morning on a freezing day in a sound studio with no heat and I'm getting sprayed with foam and water and being pulled. It looked like I was on a conveyor belt, but it was actually somebody physically pulling it. And soap kept going in my eyes. I couldn't see the teleprompter. So those took a little bit longer. But most of them were pretty straightforward, and it was me just looking right in the camera so I could read the teleprompter. And as long as we did it to a time, they knew how many seconds they needed, there was not a problem. So usually we did them very fast. What would take time, and what takes time when you're filming anything, is the setups from shot to shot. You know, when you move to a different area or they come in for a close-up or whatever else, that can take an hour for them to relight it and move the camera and do all that. So that's what takes the time. But we averaged about 5 to 6 commercials a day when we did the Micro Machines.
That's really awesome. I guess what appeals to me about Punch and your connection to it was how it was so minute in the episode, but it just, pardon the pun here, packed a punch. I mean, because that was all it needed for it to be such an awesome character.
Find him, Hot Rod, cup in the others, Optimus Prime.
Or the key to the plasma energy chamber.
Something is terribly wrong here.
When you said out of the way, you meant it?
I have found Counterpunch. The Badlands carry a built-in deterrent, a useful rendezvous point.
Guess so. Now excuse me while I slip into something more principled.
You have news, Punch?
I do. The bait has been taken.
When Prime's Autobots have comprehensively exhausted themselves clearing a path through the asteroid field, we shall indeed strike.
What I don't get is why. It's like you want Megatron to attack the Ark.
I'm afraid so. After all that you've done and sacrificed for the cause, Punch, I must ask you to undertake a further tour of deep cover duty. We must never be found. I need you, or rather your alter ego, to make sure of it.
Whatever it takes?
Yes, Megatron's evil cannot ever be allowed to blight this universe again.
So many of your finest warriors? Why?
He would know. Anything less than total commitment, Megatron would sniff out the lie, see the trap. They will be remembered.
The needs of the many.
Exactly. Cybertron will have a fighting chance.
And you?
I must try and live with what I have done, Punch. The trust that I've abused.
Secrets and lies, my friend. War is a dirty business, and no one comes out clean.